The most popular game in the world, and it's not even close, is talking about this being the future later this year for how the game will be rendered. And it's, AI hallucinated versions of the game, similar but also very different to DLSS 5. So this is going to be interesting to talk about. Now, I know some of you are like, but it's Roblox, I don't care. Now, before you log off, because I don't play or care about Roblox either, I do care about what's going to happen to the PC gaming and just gaming in general industry. And Roblox is so big that I think that what they are doing is worth paying attention to because the rest of the industry also pays attention to what the biggest game in the world is doing. Here's some stats if you're like questioning my how big is Roblox? Again, I don't play it. I don't care about Roblox. I care about the technology and how it's going to affect things. And this is how big Roblox is. So this data is a little bit old, but it's the best side-by-side comparison stat I could find. All my sources will be in the video description. Roblox, back in 2024, already had nearly 400 million active monthly users. This is all of Steam in comparison to Roblox. Yeah. All of Xbox, all of PlayStation, all of Nintendo Switch, big, gigantic games like Minecraft, Fortnite, absolutely dwarfed in comparison to Roblox. Roblox is huge. The latest stat I've seen for their concurrent player counts, all online at the same time, is 45 plus million concurrent players on a busy day currently. So game is absolutely unimaginably big for those of us like me who don't even really ever even would consider playing it. So this game is absolutely massive. So this is their post describing this new technology. My old desk sucked, and a few months ago, FlexiSpot sponsored me for an upgrade, and I have been absolutely loving it. The old one had no cable management, pieces were falling off, couldn't support a lot of weight, couldn't adjust the height, and with the FlexiSpot E7 Pro, I have tons of space. I can raise it and stand while I'm doing long editing sessions, but I can also sit down to game comfortably, get it to the perfect height, no matter what. My armchair height can reach the desk for perfect aiming of the mouse. No issues with all of that. It's so good. Has 440 pound static capacity stability, 25-inch to 50.6-inch height adjustable range, and a dual motor 3-stage semi-C leg structure. So this is absolutely everything you need. And my wife had her desk upgraded a number of years ago in her classroom, and a bunch of the other teachers at her school have been getting jealous. So actually, FlexiSpot has been sponsoring them for upgrades as well. The latest one has been an absolute huge hit in the office. Again, everybody loves that you can stand up when you're checking your emails and stuff, but also sit down. Having that movement throughout the day is huge. These desks come with a 15-year warranty and 30-day risk-free return service, so there's really no reason not to check it out. And best of all, FlexiSpot is having a massive 10th brand day and Memorial Day sale with up to 80% off. Now is the best time to upgrade your setup. They also have free orders now. Use my code YTE730 to save an extra $30 off and get your own E7 Pro standing desk. If you have a limited budget, you can use their E7. Click the link in the video description to learn more, and a huge thank you to FlexiSpot for sponsoring this part of today's video. Okay, so all this info is coming directly from Roblox in their post introducing the Roblox hybrid architecture, democratizing photorealistic multiplayer gaming. Our vision, Roblox reality. Okay, what the heck is this? Like I said, it's kind of like DLSS 5, but it's different in that DLSS 5 requires you to have an extremely powerful GPU in your local system in order to run it. This doesn't. This is done in the cloud. Now, what are these four, things that we're seeing in this video feed? So the top left is the game actually as it is rendered in the normal game engine. On the right is the 3D data that would be then fed to an AI world video of a world generating model. And then this is how it's actually looking in their lab currently, although they are saying that it doesn't necessarily run in real-time 60 FPS yet. And on the bottom right is what they're calling a mock-up of their end goal result. So I want to be clear that this is the result they're actually achieving currently, and this is just a mocked-up target for what they want to achieve. So be careful of that when you're interpreting all the little details in this. This isn't actually what the model is currently doing, it's just what they're saying is their goal. And then, like I said, even now they're saying that this isn't running in real time. But they are specifically saying that they are targeting the end of this year for the release date of this technology. Now, the way they're doing it is all through the cloud. So the game will be rendered in the cloud, and it'll keep track of the consistency of what's happening, the underlying geometry and the world state, because it's a multiplayer environment, so everything needs to be the same for all players. And yet, by everything, I guess they don't mean everything, because they've acknowledged that specific textures, the leaves on trees, grains of sand, all sorts of things, birds flying by, could be different in the AI-generated version. But I guess they're saying that the things that affect gameplay, the underlying 3D geometry, that kind of thing, will be tied to the actual game engine. So they describe this as basically a blending of the strengths and of traditional game engines and AI game world, which we've seen some technology demos of entire video games that are essentially hallucinations, but they have trouble with object persistence and like following rules and remembering what happened. So they're basically trying to say that the way you tie them together is you tie everything to an underlying game engine, but then you allow the actual pixels that people see to be this AI dream. Now, so the video that they've posted, of this certainly got a lot of comments similar to what we've seen from a lot of the DLSS 5 reactions. That's not the comments. Zoom out. There we go. Where we're seeing a ton of negative comments as the most upvoted. So this is seeming, at least in the online enthusiast communities, to get a lot of the same sorts of negative pushback that we're seeing against DLSS 5, where it's like, this isn't what a lot of people want as far as the future of game rendering. They don't want it to be an AI hallucination. We see a lot of pushback against the use of generative AI in graphics in general. And this is just saying, yeah, every single pixel you see will be AI generated and just tied to this underlying geometry. And that is their vision of what's happening. Now, as a bit of a side note, before we get further into this technology and how it's working, I'm just really interested in this whole thing with DLSS 5 and then also this, is how will the general, casual audience react to this kind of technology? Because what we've seen with all of these negative reactions to DLSS 5, and there have been some positive ones too, but I think the majority of comments I've seen and all of that have been negative. But on channels like mine and others discussing this, these are, your ultra enthusiast audience who's, watching these videos and this kind of content, and then even the tiny minority of them actually comment, and the people who feel strongest about things comment, right? So a game like Roblox, with such a large audience, and I could be wrong, but I feel like much of the audience is younger, maybe not as long time of a hardcore gamer and interested in the game industry and development. They're just playing their fun game, at kids with friends, whatever. I'm curious if that more casual audience will have the same type of negative reaction to this, or if they'll just be like, it looked like that, I like that better, I pushed the better graphics button, neat, woo. I'm curious what sort of reaction they will get from their actual core audience for this. Because, like I said, it's just a thought I have when looking at the reactions to things like DLSS 5 and now this is how does the ultra enthusiast market, have differences of opinions compared to the way more casual audience, which I think, associate with Roblox. Like I said, I don't actually play it or know a whole heck of a lot about it. Now let's get a little further into the technology because there's some other interesting ideas going on here and how they want to make this work. Because again, this is done in the cloud. So the way they describe this, there's a table down here as far as the actual infrastructure, is that they have a bunch of data centers that are running the actual game instances on the actual game engine. And again, here's that number of peaking at 45 plus million concurrent users. But then there'll be another data center. So there'll be an adjacent edge data center that is running the AI vision model, the AI generated video model, I guess, with H200, B200 class GPUs or equivalent accelerators. So basically, one data center renders the game on the game engine, feeds the game engine data into a nearby data center, which then runs the AI model. But that sounds like we could have a lot of latency, right? So that's one of the big questions here for me, beyond the just, is this what we actually want to happen to the game visuals? Another question here is just the feasibility of the latency on that, right? So one of the really interesting comments they have on that is this. So they're saying that the Roblox video model, that's which they're calling the super upsampler. Now, it's not really upscaling. I also hate that with DLSS 5, how they're calling it. DLSS we think of as an upscaler, and yet DLSS 5 is, like a AI generation that it just doesn't seem like an upscaler, right? So now they're calling this a super upsampler. But anyway, the Roblox video model leverages rendered video and rich data model context to produce stochastic visuals and striking realism, operating on the edge for every player with optimal performance powered by cloud edge GPU infrastructure. However, again, there'd be latency if it's running in the cloud. So they say the rich Roblox client would then render this video feed and, in the future, optionally overlay a locally rendered upsampled avatar to maintain very low latency on foreground actions. Okay, let me try to translate that a little bit. There's a lot of, a lot of big words happening there. So as I understand it, what they're saying is, okay, so your avatar, your player character could be rendered locally on the client PC, so or console or whatever you're using. And then now they are saying upsampled, so I wonder if they are even talking about also then running some kind of this AI model on that avatar too, so it still looks, the more like hyper-realistic type thing, but then overlaying that, which is controlled locally, on top of the video feed that you're getting from the AI model here, so that your actual player character is responding more real-time because it's rendered locally on top of the video feed. Now, I have so many questions about that because how does camera motion fit into that? If you turn the camera with your player character, or how do things respond to you in the actual game? So that sounds weird. They also mentioned some predictive algorithms being used to try to cut down on latency and things like that. So sounds like they at least have some thoughts on how they might address latency, but I do have some big questions about that. So anyway, overall, though, this does sound in the end to be very similar to the end result that something like DLSS 5 is looking for. This just seems to be focused a lot more on trying to make it happen in the cloud rather than on local PCs having the hardware to actually do it themselves. Now, their overall target for performance is 2K, so 1440p at 60 hertz, but they acknowledge that it does remain a developmental challenge, so they are going to have to deal with that. Now, a big part of their post is talking about video world models strengths versus game engine strengths, and then how they're trying to bring that together. That's what they're saying. So this is their comparison of the tech demos that show an entire game that's just completely AI hallucinated, essentially. And then they talk about traditional game engines, but they say that, well, these have consistent logic and object permanence and all of that, that it becomes expensive and has a lot of development time to go for photorealism. So the way they are presenting this technology is syncing the game logic from the game engine, but with the video pixels generated by AI. And then they view that as, they view this technology as bringing the strengths of both of those together. With the Roblox game engine also running in the cloud, with the Roblox video model running in the cloud to deliver you what they view as the best of both worlds. So they say the game engine's primary function is to handle all state synchronization to keep the world consistent, the data model, the shared and consistent state, and then the AI video model will then manage the visuals and generative components, the pixels, the visual dream, they describe it. This whole post, by the way, feels kind of AI generated. But anyway, this is directly from Roblox, so this is the official thing. It's not me using AI to summarize their post. It's just, I think this feels a lot like they used AI to generate their post. But anyway. Their core responsibilities for the game engine is to provide stable long-term memory, symbolic logic, and repeatable simulation, responsible for fundamental physical properties like materials and locations, and operations like collision and ray tracing. However, then the video AI model will deliver stochastic visuals and breathtaking realism, secondary motion, natural dynamic environments, and fluid physics. Generates higher fidelity textures, more realistic lighting, and fine-scale dynamics. As they say, for world consistency, the game engine provides precision, consistent state, and guaranteed consistency, centralizes the state onto this one source of truth. But then the video model, which would struggle with all this consistency, says it excels at generating plausible high-dimensional behaviors without explicit simulation. Like managing a living crowd, and operates on the edge for every player. They say that data is handled in the engine, everything that is consistent among all players, player positions, cars, birds, buildings, 3D scene. And in the AI video model, it handles ephemeral things that players do not need to see exactly the same. Rusty cans, flock of birds, cloud shapes, grains, sand grains, grass. So they're kind of saying here that they're acknowledging that not every player will see the same things, but they're claiming that the things that matter for gameplay will be consistent and tied to the game engine, whereas little details like flocks of birds in the background, cloud shapes, grains of sand, the details in the grass, those could all be different because the AI video feed could be generating different versions of all of those for all of the people playing the game. For memory storage, data model for the game engine versus video latents is the data storage for the AI video. So it's like then standalone constraint. So this is where they're kind of saying these strengths and weaknesses of these. So the game engine, they say, struggles with visual complexity and high computational demands for photorealism, but the AI model struggles with strict rule enforcement, long-term memory, consistent logic, and user input control. And I already talked about how they're planning to run that. So they say that together this platform supports infinite content creation with deep creator control. Okay, so that's what this is. Now, like I said, going beyond Roblox specifically, I'm curious how many other big game publishers are exploring this type of technology. And we've already seen DLSS 5 incoming, which is a very similar idea, but done locally. This is, I don't know, guys, like, First of all, I mean, all of the general concerns we've brought up regarding DLSS 5, regarding the actual image that we get. Is it actually what we want to see in the game? And then all the questions about artistic intent. How much is the generative AI just making up stuff that isn't what the artist wanted? How consistent can it be? What the ethics behind, jobs and AI models being, based on other people's art, et cetera. So there's all of those ethical things to bring up with all of this and all those general concerns. But on top of that, from a technology perspective, this one's interesting, the comparison between DLSS 5 and this idea. DLSS 5 running locally, I imagine, would have better latency, but yeah, it seems like it would require a pretty heavy-duty GPU, at least in the tech showcase we've seen of it so far, where they were basically using an entire 5090 just to run the AI part of it, after getting the images fed and rendered traditionally on a second 5090. So there's that. This seems like by handling it in the cloud, you could roll this out to a huge number of users, on a scale that I think DLSS 5 couldn't match, just due to the hardware requirements to run it. Also, this would be vendor agnostic, from you wouldn't need your PC to have a certain brand. So by doing this in the cloud, I certainly see that there are some advantages to doing it that way. Although the main disadvantage seems to be that you're going to deal with the latency and video quality issues that you run into with all game streaming. And then they've already acknowledged that getting this to run in real time already is difficult for them. And yet they are talking about having this available in an early version, at least later this year or early next year. Anyway, I'm curious what you guys think about all of this, and this is now the second big technology I think we've seen, coming after DLSS 5. Along these lines, I'm curious how many others we'll start to see from other game publishers and all of that. Let me know what you think about everything in the comment section. I'm sure there will be a lot of strong opinions, and this will also be very controversial, just like DLSS 5. But this is clearly an area of research that game publishers are looking into. So let me know what you think.